Hi, so the title of the short story we're going to present is The Bet. The Bet is a short story by Anton Chekhov, first published in 1889. It's about a bet between a banker and a lawyer over whether life in prison is better than death. The lawyer agrees to stay in isolation for 15 years to win 2 million rubles. During that time, both men change deeply, leading to surprising realization about life, money, and what truly.
Okay, so the next slide is we have the analysis and Freytag triangle. So in this Freytag triangle, we have the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and lastly we have the resolution. So without wasting any time, let's go through the exposition first. So how does the exposition begin? The story begins with a party where a young lawyer and a banker discuss about the value of life and punishment. The central conflict of the Freytag triangle is where the two men debate about whether death penalty or life in prison is more human. So the banker argues life in prison is worse than death. Meanwhile, the lawyer believes that any form of life is more valid, or should I say more better than death. So the lawyer accepts a bet proposed by the banker, which is he accept to live in prison, which is solitary confinement for 15 years to get 2 million rubles, provided he remains in isolation for the entire period. So the summary of the Freytag triangle's exposition is where the interaction between the bet between the young lawyer, and the banker, right? So next we have the rising action where the lawyer enters the solitary confinement room with a small, well-furnished room on the banker property. So the rising action falls here as the lawyer adapts to his isolation, enduring physical and mental challenge. Over the years, the lawyer reads books, learning language, and refine his knowledge in various subjects. So the intellectual growth contrasts with the banker increasing anxiety about the bet as he worries about losing his money. So, so right here we have the passage of time is the key of element here, with the lawyers increasing physiology transformation and the growing tension between him and the banker. You know, the psychological transformation, because over the years, the key element here is the time. That is the rising action. So for the summary is we have like the lawyers in 15 years solitary confinement. Here only he can discover the knowledge through the book and learning the subjects, just doing his minding his own business in the prison cell. Alright, so we have the climax. The climax argue near the end of their 15 years. The banker, having grown financially desperate, plans to kill the lawyer to avoid paying the 2 million rubles. He sneaked through the lawyer's room to carry out the murder. However, he finds the lawyer deeply changed into and detached from worldly matters. So the lawyer has renounced the material world, and the story climate hangs on the lawyer's decisions to leave the confinement a few hours before the bet is won. So the summary of the climate is which is the lawyer and the banker. The banker is find himself anxiety because the lawyer is finally almost made the 15 years over the past year, like before the bet is won, and the banker realized that the lawyer changed in and detached from the worldly matter. That's it. Moving on to the following action, where the banker realized the lawyer has voluntarily forfeit for the bet, renouncing the money and the 15 years of absolution. Alright, the lawyer leaves his confinement, but his decision has come too late for the banker. So the realization sets in that lawyer's sacrifice and intellectual growth has made himself see the fertility of material wealth. So basically the banker got and realization that the lawyer has mentally and spiritually transcended the bet's original purpose become clear. Alright, so the summary of the following action is that the banker and the banker has made their decision, but it's come too late before the bet. Finally, we hit the end of the story, which is the resolution. In the resolution, the lawyer leaves the banker's house, walking away from both 2 million rubles and the physical world he once sought to conquer, which is the banker is left with nothing but regret for having been so motivated by the greed and superficial values, which is the final twist is that the lawyer has not only won the bet but also gained a much deeper understanding of life, much and completely rejecting materialism. So here we have the summary in terms of rated triangle, which is the resolution. The lawyer walks away having rejected the bad material price, and the banker is left with the guts and loss, which is the banker, on the other hand, both financially and morally, has nothing he gained. That's it. That is the last of resolution we have. Thank you.
There are two internal conflicts in this short story. The first one is the lawyer. The lawyer struggled with his feeling and thought during the 15 years he spent alone. At first, he feels lonely and bored, but over time, he learns new things and starts thinking deeply about life. His struggle leads him to reject money and the pleasures of the world. In the end, he decides he no longer cares about money or the things most people value like wealth and success. So the evidence of loneliness and boredom is, in the first year of confinement, the lawyer wrote, "Want excite desire, and desire are the chief foes of a prisoner." This shows how he struggled with his emotion and tried to avoid distraction. The second evidence, which is the rejection of wealth, at the end, the lawyer wrote a letter. This proved he no longer cared about money or worldly success after his year of isolation. The second of internal conflict is the banker. The banker faced his own struggle. He was rich when he made the bet, but over the years he lost a lot of money. When he realized he might have to pay the lawyer 2 million rubles, he considered killing the lawyer to save himself. This shows how desperate and ashamed he feels. The evidence of shame and considering murder is when the banker sneaks into the lawyer's room hitting, "I have only to take," and throw this half-dead thing on the bed, smother him a moment with the pillow, and the most careful examination will find no trace of unnatural death. This shows his depression and moral conflict. The external conflict in the story is the bet between the lawyer and the banker. The bet is a challenge between the two men. The lawyers want to prove that living in isolation is better than dying, while the banker doubts no one can survive 15 years alone. So, the evidence of the bet is when the banker says during the initial argument, "I bet you 2 million you wouldn't stick in a cell even for 5 years. The lawyer accepts, raising the stake to 15 years, showing this as a test of their belief. The second of external conflict is the lawyer's isolation. The lawyer's 15 years in a small room, cut off from people and the world, is a huge external challenge. He has to find ways to keep himself busy during this time. The strict term of the bet limit his interaction with the outside world, forcing him to confront the limitation of human existence. So, the evidence of his struggle to endure confinement is during the first year, the lawyer constantly playing the piano, showing his loneliness. Later, he stopped playing and wrote notes, asking for books. This shows his effort to keep himself occupied and maintain his sanity.
So next is setting. So the first setting is the time period, which is the story set on the late 19th century, a time when social divided between rich and poor. The second setting is location, which is a banker's house that present wealth, luxury, and external world of societal power. Alright, the second location is the lawyer's cell, the small, simple room where the lawyer spent his years in isolation, and it symbolized the theme of confinement, both physical and physiological.
So now I'm going to talk about the theme of the story. So the first one is the illusion of wealth and materialism, where both characters, the lawyer and the banker, are motivated by material wealth. The banker wagers 2 million rubles to demonstrate his power, and the lawyer accepts the bet for the promise of riches. The lawyer even called the money paradise, but after 15 years solitude, the lawyer discovered material wealth is meaningless. The second one is the corruption of greed. The banker greets find him, pushing him to consider murder to avoid losing his fortune. His moral degradation is a direct result of his inability to detach from material wealth. The evidence for this theme is where the banker said that "I only have to take and throw this half-dead body thing on the bed, smother him a moment with a pillow, and most careful examination will find no trace of unnatural death." So the third theme of this story is hubris and regret, where the banker initiates arrogance in making his bed, reveal his hubris and confidence on his wealth and power, but over time, the banker's financial situation deteriorates, and he is consumed by regret and depression that he even contemplating murder to avoid paying any debt, while the lawyer harbors in believing that he can withstand the confinement of 15 years involved into humility. The evidence of this theme is where the banker once said that he never at any other time, not even after his terrible losses, on the exchange had he felt such contempt for himself as now.
Hi, so for now I'm going to talk about character and characteristic. So there are two famous characters in the story, which is the banker and the lawyer. Characteristic of the character the banker. So initially he's wealthy, confident and impulsive. So then throughout the story, he recklessly make a bet with the lawyer for 2 million rubles. Over time, he becomes financially ruined and morally disgusting, contemplating murder to avoid paying the debt. By the end of the story, he experienced shame and self-loathing after reading the lawyer's renunciation of material wealth. So, the character, the lawyer, characteristic of him is he's young, idealistic, and ambitious at the start, willing to risk 13 years of his life for wealth. During his imprisonment, he evolved intellectually and spiritually, immersing himself in literature, philosophy, and religion. By the end, he rejected materialism and worldly pleasure, voluntarily forfeiting the 2 million rubles. Such a noble act of his.
So now we'll move on to tone. So the first one is reflective, where the story is introspective with the character, particularly the banker, reflecting deeply on the nature of life, morality, and the consequences of their choices. So the next one is tense, where there is underlying tension, particularly in the banker's moral conflict as he contemplates killing the lawyer to save himself from financial ruin. Now we move to style. The first one is realistic, where the Chekhov narrative is grounded in plausible event and human emotion with attention to detail in the setting and character behavior. The second one is symbolic. The lawyer experience with book, wine, and solitude symbolize broader about human desire, the pursuit of knowledge, and the ultimate futility of material wealth. And the third one is moralistic, where the narrative conveys implicit moral lesson about greed, pride, and transient nature of worldly pursuit.
Point of view from the story, the banker is the main subject of the story, which is narrated from a third-person limited point of view. Readers can comprehend his internal conflicts since the narrator offers insight into his feelings, ideas, and experience. Through his deeds, letters, and the concluding message, the lawyer's transformation is subtly exposed, highlighting the disparity in values of the two characters. So, in this story, the point of view in the bed by Anton Chekhov is third person limited. What is third person limited? Meaning, the narrator has access to the thoughts and feeling of one character in this case, primarily the banker. This perspective allows the reader to dive deeply into the banker's internal struggles and shifting emotion throughout the story. So, these are scenes that highlight point of view from the story The Bed. Focus on the banker. The narration provides direct access to banker's thought, regret, and fear. For instance, his reflection on the foolishness of the bet, his financial ruin, and his desperation are all presented through his internal monologue. His perspective shaped the reader's understanding of the event, particularly his evolving guilt and shame as the end of the bet approached. So for the second scene, limited insight into the lawyer. The lawyer transformation is not described through his thoughts but through his action, letters and the final note he writes. This creates a sense of mystery around him and emphasizes the contrast between the two characters. By not diving into the lawyer's mind, the story underscores the distance and disconnect between the banker and the lawyer, even though the latter's action profoundly affect the former. So, for the third scene, the narrator intentionally creates suspense and emotional tension. Since the story is filtered mainly through the banker, The reader experiences his moral dilemmas and desperation firsthand, particularly when he considers murdering the lawyer to avoid financial ruins. This limited perspective heightens the tension and keep the focus on the theme of moral and spiritual digression of redemption. And so, for the last scene, commentary on humanity. By focusing on the banker's perspective, Chekhov critiqued materialism, greed, and the emptiness of wealth. At the same time, the lawyer's renunciation of the 2 million rubles is a dramatic revelation that provides a counterpoint to the banker point of view. However, because the lawyer's thoughts are not directly revealed, the story leaves room for readers to interpret his transformation in their own way. Interesting, right? So, to sum up the point of view from the story, the third person limited point of view aligns the reader closely with the banker's journey, while leaving the lawyer's inner world more enigmatic, thereby emphasizing the story's theme of greed, homophily, and the search for meaning. Very interesting way of how the story is told, right? You guys can read the story for yourself.
Next is literary devices. Anton Chekhov short story The Bat employs a variety of literary devices to enhance the theme, character, and overall impact. Here are the devices that used in the story. Okay, the first literary devices is irony. The irony is separated into two, which is the situational irony, which is the banker who initially believed the death penalty is more humane, ultimately advised the lawyer physiological enlightenment. And next is the dramatic irony, which is the lawyer renunciation. The prize money is revealed to the readers before the banker know it. So by that, it heightening the tension. The second literary devices is foreshadowing and symbolism. The foreshadowing is early reference to the banker's financial troubles, hint at his moral decline and his willingness to take a drastic action. And next is symbolism, which is the first one is prison cell that present isolation. The next one is the books that symbolize the vast potential of human intellect, and the last one is the letter that present the lawyer ultimate rejection of materialism. The next literary devices is contrast and theme. The first one is the contrast, is the opposing views of the banker and the lawyer on life, death, and the value of freedom create a thematic tension that drive the story. And for the theme is the story explore themes like the corruption, power of wealth, the search for meaning, and the ephemeral nature of human desire. Next is tone and allegory. The first one is tone. The tone shift from argumentative and philosophical in the beginning to somber and reflective towards the end, mirroring the character's transformation. And the next is allegory, which is the story can be read as an allegory about the futility of materialism and transcend nature of human ambition. Next is imagery and juxtaposition. The imagery is Chekhov uses vivid description of the lawyer solitary confinement and the banker's mental turmoil to create a rich emotional and physical setting. And next is juxtaposition, where is the lawyer's deep intellectual pursuits are juxtaposition with bankers increasingly shallow the desperate action. And the last one of literary devices is paradox, which is the lawyers gain wisdom and spiritual enlightenment but loses his connection to humanity and the material world, which creates a physiological paradox.